let's see. I got everything here. Alrighty, let's wrap up February reads. It was a great reading month for me. I had mostly 4 and 5 star reads. I did have a couple 3s or like 3.5s, and I did have one 2-star read. However, I was thoroughly enjoying that book until the twist at the end, and that has since like kind of ruined it for me. But reading it was super enjoyable. So it was a great month, and I'm ready to wrap up everything that I read. Let's kick off with the one, Court of Silver Flames. I have an entire reading vlog of this. It's already up. You can go ahead and check that out for my full thoughts on this. This was a ride and I absolutely loved it. I was not the biggest Nesta fan from the previous 4 books. She was just not my favorite character. I didn't hate her, but I also wasn't like that invested in her. This book totally changed my opinion on her. I felt like her story was very reminiscent of Aelin in Heir of Fire and Feyre and Mist and Fury, just the journey that she goes through, and the mental health representation in here I felt was really great, and I could connect to it very personally. And I think that a lot of the characters in here, like Gwen and Emery as well, for other people, hopefully they can see themselves in this book. And it was just fantastic. I loved Cassian. I loved getting the bits of recent figure that we did, as I will just say the cut scene that I think Az was a part of. You know what scene I'm talking about? I'm very disappointed that that was cut out. Sarah J. Maas just like leak it on the side low-key. I do have the Barnes & Noble version, so I have the extra Rhys and Feyre chapter. I haven't found the Az bonus chapter yet, but I want to find that and read that because I'm just assuming that him and Gwen are maybe going to be the next book focus. I hope so. I hope it just focuses on anyone other than Eris or Elaine because I don't care about either of them. But anyways, this was 5 out of 5 stars for me. Absolutely incredible. I literally loved it so much, but you can check out that vlog for more of my thoughts. I'm just gonna work my way through the physical books that I have here. Next, I read 6 of Crows. I loved this, and I can't wait. I just got Crooked Kingdom from Barnes & Noble yesterday, so I can't wait to start reading that. I'm so excited. I loved Shadow and Bone. I really loved the first 2. Ruin and Rising wasn't my favorite. I did still like it. I just didn't necessarily love how it all wrapped up because there were certain characters that I hoped for different things for. However, this, next level for me. I totally get the Kaz Brekker hype now. He could call me an investment any day and I take it. Just saying. I love Inej, get out of here. Oh, every single character in this book I really like. Matthias, is that how you say it? Matthias. He's not my favorite, but I do still kind of like him. But like Jesper, we don't have a lot of Wylan yet, and Nina I loved. So I can't wait for Crooked Kingdom. I'm really loving this. This is just, I think, like Shadow and Bone, but next level because every single character in this is like a little morally gray, where in Shadow and Bone, like Alina and Mal are so like, it's the right thing to do. And that just gets annoying for me sometimes because I really do love the morally gray characters, and Kaz Brekker is like, I think, the definition of morally gray, and he's so fun to read. And I thoroughly enjoyed this. 5 out of 5 stars for me. Then this wasn't a purely February read, but my book club wrapped this up in February, and that is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Get out of here. This book was incredible. Again, another 5 out of 5 stars. This book literally put me into a funk after finishing reading it. Like, I was just in a mood after finishing it. The ending, while it obviously like it wrapped up exactly how I think like I wanted it to, I couldn't really ask for anything more. It left me feeling some sort of way, and it definitely had me crying a lot. But this book really just had me hooked from the beginning to the end. I did have to pace myself because obviously I was reading it with a book club, but if I would not have been, I think I would have finished this in one sitting. So maybe it was a good thing that I paced myself or had to, but I just wanted to read husband after husband, page after page. It was just, I can't get over how incredible this was. And Evelyn, baddest bitch, loved her. And Harry, so pure. Anything that I really truly love, I kind of have to cut it or else I'm gonna just keep on rambling. Kind of like how I needed to do with Silver Flames and 6 Girls. Like, I just need to kind of cut it. So I'm just gonna do the same with this because I don't want to turn into a rambling mess. I loved every single moment of this, and if you haven't read it, do it. Last physical book that I read this month, which was my 2-star read, like 2.5, 2, was The Wives. I'm still torn. I'm still like, do I hate it or do I like it? I don't know. I'm leaning more towards hate, but I don't read a ton of thrillers, and I do like them whenever I read them. I just don't normally pick them up, but one of my friends, this is actually one of her copy, she was like, you need to read this book. It's so good. And I get why people like it, and I get why she liked it. But for me, the twist was just not it. I've kind of decided that the twist was just not for me at the end of this. I'm going to spoil it here. So if you don't want to hear spoilers, I'd skip ahead just like 30, 40 seconds for the next book. But this one, I didn't like that she just turned out to be crazy, and that was the entire twist. I didn't like that. I thought that there should have been some other plot going along with the husband. I don't even remember what his name is, and I'm not going to look it up. But Thursday, I don't know, this book just had so much potential. I was so intrigued in this, and I was so ready to see how this turned out. I'm like, the idea of it, of this guy having 3 wives, but they don't know about each other, and then Thursday is befriending one of them, and then realizes that she thinks he's abusing her, but she doesn't know that they're married. I don't know, there was a lot of potential in this, and I think the twist just totally let me down, and that really changed my opinion on the whole thing. This made me want to get back into reading thrillers a bit more, because I did love it up until the twist, but it was just overall disappointing, so I'd give it like 2.5 stars. Last like fantasy / dystopian book that I read this month that's more on like the YA side is Imagine Me by Tahera Mafi. This is the last book in the Shatter Me series. I did end up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. I did like it more than Defy Me, which is book 5, but I'm just still not sure if I'm sold on the last 3 books as a whole. They were a little disappointing for me. The first 3 books I loved so much, but these last 3, while they felt necessary, Ignite Me left off with so much room to explore in this world and so many unanswered questions that I get why she continued the series. But in a way, these last 3 books also felt so unnecessary. So I don't know. I love the series overall still. My biggest takeaway by far is that I love her writing style. I think it is one of my favorites that I read. It's very poetic and very just like fluid. I don't know, it's incredible. And I loved the characters. I loved Juliet and Kenji, but my ultimate favorite was Warner out of this whole book. I think from where the series started to where it ended, besides Juliet, obviously, because she's our heroine, so she is obviously going to go through like the most change. I think Aaron Warner, stop, from the beginning to the end. I loved his character so much. Again, we're talking about like that morally gray character. Of course, I'm gonna love it. And I really thought that he made this series for me. So I don't know, I was a little disappointed by the finale, but I think how the book actually wrapped itself up was pretty solid. So I did like it overall. I would definitely recommend the series. I would just say like those last 3 books were not my favorite. Okay, now I think we're heading into the rest of these that I read were all romance books because you know how it is. So to kick off the month, this was my first read of the month, and it was Wallbanger by Alice Clayton. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of like traditionally published romance. I do really like indie romance the best, but this was good. I loved it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It was such a fun time. It's just a rom-com in a book, so I loved it. The banter was 10 out of 10, and thank God it did not stop when Simon and Caroline got together, which a lot of the times it does, you know? As soon as they're done being enemies and they move into like relationship territory, the banter just becomes non-existent. But that was not the case with this book. The banter continued from page 1 to the last page, and I loved that. And also Clive the Cat deserves his own spin-off. Okay, next up, I read A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. This is a Hades and Persephone retelling. I had never read a Hades and Persephone retelling before, so this was my first one. It is a very modern day retelling. They're in like a world kind of like ours, but there are Greek gods and goddesses, which I just thought was super cool. I love Greek mythology, so I liked that incorporation of it. And once again, I love the bad guys, so I loved having Hades. I did like this. I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Looking back, I think I might give it like 3.5. If I'm being honest, I can't remember all that much about it or anything that like really stands out about it, besides that it's just like a very cool world building, and I do just like the story of Hades and Persephone. So I will continue reading on with the series. I think the second book is the entire first book, but from Hades' perspective, and I really don't like that. I'd much rather one book be split between a dual perspective. I don't like retellings from another character's perspective. I think it's kind of a waste of time, but I think I'm gonna actually read this one because I'm interested in Hades' perspective, and everyone says that it's better than Persephone's book. But overall, I think out of the month, like, I really enjoyed it at the time. I just think looking back, it was kind of like, a good read, but it's not going to be a memorable read for me. This month, I finished the Kings of Rittenhouse series, so I read books 3, 4, and 5. So book 3 is Ruthless King, which is Emmett and Avery's story. I was looking forward to this one, especially after book 2. Emmett and Avery are set up as being these two people who hate each other, and it's their second chance romance. They were dating in high school, had a really explosive breakup, and now this book follows them getting back together. I liked it. I gave this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. I thought that the rekindling of their romance made sense. It wasn't rushed, and I really liked that. The resolution felt earned. And also the conflict, thank God, the conflict of why they actually broke up made sense, and it wasn't some stupid petty thing, which I was getting worried about. I'm like, if they have broken up and we have created this whole big issue for something dumb, I was gonna be upset. But it actually was like a good reason for them to have broken up, and it wasn't just like some dumb misunderstanding. I mean, yes, there was miscommunication, but the actual circumstances made sense. So I did like this. And then the 4th book, my favorite, it is Fearless King, and this one follows Ford and Olivia. This is like the book, which was the reason why I wanted to read this series. It's a brother's best friend trope, one of my favorites. And this one obviously follows Olivia, which is Colm's youngest sister, but he's also her guardian because their parents were in a car accident when they were in high school, so he did take legal guardianship of her. So he's a brother, but he's also just like next level protective of her because of their past. So this is, I think, one of the brothers' best friend books where the conflict is not resolved at the end of it, and it does carry over into the 5th book, which I liked because it was so explosive when it came out that Ford and Olivia were together, and Colm, Ford, and Olivia all really needed to process the repairing of this friendship. I like that it took the time to also bleed over into the 5th book. I really liked Ford and Olivia. I liked them individually, and I liked them together as a couple. And for them to kind of like mess up some relationship dynamics, I needed to want them together, and I definitely did. And then the last book is Heartless King, which it is Colm and Imogen's story. And I was shocked that we got Emo again. We are introduced to her in the 1st and 2nd book, and then something happens, and we see her a bit in the 3rd, and I guess I didn't really ever think about her again once she was gone, or think that she was going to be a bigger part in the story, but I did really enjoy getting her character. So this one follows Colm and her, and it is a surprise pregnancy, which I don't mind that trope. It's not my favorite, but in this I did like it. It made sense. And I liked the way that it gave Colm a purpose, because he is in a very dark place when this book starts, because he is coming off of Ford and Olivia's relationship outing, and then also his big injury. So I liked it, and I gave this one 4 out of 5, I think. So overall, I loved the series. By far, Fearless King was my favorite book, but I would definitely recommend it. It is very similar to Off Campus. I personally liked Off Campus more, but I did really enjoy this series as well. And I know Maya Hughes does have a few other sports romance series, and I do plan on checking them out because I'm just kind of in a sports romance mood right now. So, sports romance, why don't we jump into the other sports romance that I read this month, which was Long Shot by Kennedy Ryan. This was the first book that I read by Kennedy Ryan, and it will not be the last. Okay. This book was not what I was expecting to get, and in a good way, but also just in like a yikes. It is a very heavy book. It does deal with domestic violence, and it is fairly graphic. So I will say, if that is something that is triggering for you, I would definitely tread lightly with this one. So this follows Iris in August. August is about to be drafted into the NBA, and one night at a bar, he meets Iris, who is watching a Lakers game, and they just strike up a conversation, and they really connect, and they have like a moment. But at the end of the night, she's like, yeah, I can't go home with you. I have a boyfriend. And they kind of like part ways, but August never stops thinking about Iris. Turns out Iris is dating August's rival from like grade school to pro basketball. I think his name's Caleb. But Caleb is like the golden boy. He's got the rich daddy. He's got everyone like eating out the palm of his hand. But Caleb is trash. Fucking trash. Okay, so I'm gonna keep this sparse because I do think going into it, you kind of need to be a little blind, but I will just say, if those things are triggering for you, you need to know that before going in. But otherwise, I don't really want to explain too much of the plot. It's insane. Iris is, I think, one of the best heroines I've ever read. She is like so strong and determined, and you just feel everything right along with her. I was so frustrated and felt so helpless right there with her, and like I was even trying to think of a way out, and I was like, I can't. And this book really made me think on like how women are perceived in the media a lot, and especially like wives of athletes, how they can be seen as like clout chasers or just there for the money. And it just really made me rethink of how the media can spin women. And August might just be the most perfect hero I've ever read. If he was real life, I would never have a shot, but boy, would I try. I'm just gonna leave it at that. This book was absolutely incredible. If you liked It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, I would definitely check this out because very similar vibes. And it was insane. It was so good. Hey, then my dark heart really loved this one. I read Deviant King by Rena Kent. It is the first book in the Royal Elite series. I'm started in book 2 right now, and I do have the 3rd one downloaded on my Kindle too, and I'm definitely gonna be continuing on with the series. I loved this. So this follows Aiden and Elsa. Yeah, it starts out when she moves to this new school. And on like the first day, she's just like standing there, and this dude comes up, pins her against the wall by her throat, and says, I will ruin you. This book is dark. If you do not like dark romance, don't even try this. Like, Aiden is terrible for the vast majority of this book, but my dark heart was like, but there's probably good in him. Again, I feel like you kind of need to go in blind with this one a bit. Like, obviously read the synopsis on Goodreads, but otherwise like kind of steer clear, I would say, of like spoilers and stuff, because this is just a wild ride. And again, the end of the book, I was like, what the fuck? So I'm in book 2 now, and I'm still like, oh my God, I'm just trying to compute. And I gave this one, I think, 4 out of 5 stars as well. This book has been on my TBR for a long time. It's The Doctor by Nikki Sloan. Again, a first book for me by this author. And again, it will not be my last either. It's like Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas, but on steroids. It's a lot shorter, it's a lot more into the thick of things, and it's just a lot smuttier. I don't really know what else to say. For the life of me, I can't remember these 2 characters' names, and I don't feel like looking them up, but it follows this one girl who, her and her boyfriend break up. She's like in college. Boyfriend's trash too. I mean, aren't they all? And then she starts a fling with his dad, and he's a doctor. So, I mean, it was just a fun time. Was this like the most groundbreaking thing I've ever read, like long shot? No. But is it what I needed at the time? Yes. It was just fun. So I genuinely loved this. If you liked Birthday Girl, but if you didn't necessarily like the slow burn as much, this is where it's at. I liked Birthday Girl more, but I like slow burn a lot more, and just like Penelope Douglas can't be topped in my book, my queen. So I did really like this though. And I think I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars too, because I just enjoyed myself. Then I read Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert, and I loved the crap out of this book. There's nothing that I didn't love in this book. I loved Danny. She was such a fun character to follow. And Zaf, I really loved him, and I really related to his struggles in this book, and it was something that just gave the story so much more heart and so much more depth for me. And I really look for accurate mental health representation in books, and this had that for me. And I really liked Danny and Zaf's story. I thought it was great. It does start out as like a fake dating trope, and they're friends. They work together, and she's a graduate student and she's teaching, and Zaf is the security guard of her building, and he's secretly crushing on her. But she likes him, but she also thinks that he's like in it for a relationship, and she just wants a good time. She doesn't really want feelings. So she's like asking the universe, she's like, send me a sign. I need a buddy. And the universe keeps pointing her to Zaf, and finally she listens. And it was really cute. Zaf was, again, one of the most perfect heroes I've ever read, and I genuinely love this book. So I've been seeing this book show up on my Kindle ads for so long, so I finally looked into it, and it was a student teacher. So I was like, I'm gonna try it. So it is Temptation by Ivy Smoke. This one follows Professor Hunter and Penny, I think is her name. And obviously it's a professor-student teacher relationship. I was here for it. I love a forbidden romance. What can I say? So in this one, Penny she's 19 at college, and she has a run-in with this guy at a coffee shop, and he spills coffee on her, and he ends up giving her his sweater, and she's like, ooh, who was that man? Whatever, but Penny's super shy and like kind of annoying. Penny was not my favorite heroine, but Professor Hunter, I'm here for it. And then she goes into class one day and he's her professor and they just start flirting. You know how it goes. And I loved it. I didn't realize that this wasn't a standalone. So it is, I think there are 3 other books. So I'm definitely going to read those. I'm hoping to get around to them this month. The only thing for this book that made it 4 out of 5 stars for me was one, I don't know what it was, but every single chapter it was described of Penny getting dressed or what Penny was wearing, and it just annoyed me. It was such a small thing, but once I noticed it, I couldn't not notice it. And the other thing was there's like other man drama a bit, like Penny goes back and forth with this one dude that she's kind of stringing along, where he almost assaults her at a party at the beginning of this, and then he's like, oh, let me have a chance to make it up to you, and she takes him up on it and then like kind of entertains the idea of a relationship with him and has a friendship with him after that. No, it's a no from me. I didn't want to focus on that character whatsoever, so I hope that he's not a part of the books moving forward. I feel like he's going to be, but I really hope not. So anyways, I did like this. Another great student teacher for me to add to the list. Lastly, I just finished this one last night and I read Savior by Fiona Cole. This is the 3rd book in the Voyeur series. And I did like this, but here's the thing. I wanted more. It was a fairly short book. It was like 260 pages. And I just really felt that there could have been so much more explored with Alexandra and Eric. Again, this book does deal with some heavy topics. Eric does help rescue women who are being trafficked, and it starts out where Alexandra's sister and her boyfriend have like run them down into a hole. They've spent all of their money on drugs, and Alexandra has no money, has really like no options, and she tries to sell herself, which then Eric is like, scoops in, takes her off, offers her a job, and it kind of goes from there. Because Eric's sisters were both trafficked. So it does explore that a bit and how that affected Eric and his family. So it's heavy. It's heavier, I think, than... Actually, now thinking about it though, every single book in this series has been heavy in a different way, because Oakland and Callum had some shit to go through, and so did Jake and Jackson and Karina too. So they're all dealing with heavy things. So damn. I didn't really realize that until now. Overall, I liked it. There was just a little too much other woman drama for me. Like Eric, and in his dumb attempt to try to push Alexandra away, he was just doing a lot of stuff with other women in front of Alexandra, and that just, it didn't vibe with me. I wish we would have had longer for him to kind of grovel a bit. I felt like it was a little bit too of a quick turnaround that me personally, I just would have liked to seen a little bit more groveling on his part. But I definitely am going to keep going with the series, especially the epilogue has me ready for book 4, which is Karina and Ian. I do just really like Fiona Cole's writing style though. Like it does just flow very easily. So that is everything that I read in February. As I said, it was a great reading month, and I am really looking forward to all of the books that I have to read in Wednesday. In March, I do have like some series that I want to continue, and my book club is going to be starting The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I'm so excited for that. It was my pick, so I hope it's good and I hope people like it. I don't really know what to ever say in these because it's like, what do you want to hear? The video's over, so see ya.